rideshare drivers are pushing for the right to unionize by saying they make less than minimum wage in Boston, right? So this is coming out of Boston. I believe Boston's minimum wage is $15 per hour. And they're saying that new report shows drivers making less than $15 an hour. Let's read off what the article says, and then I'm gonna give you my thoughts. A new report from the group pushing to allow rideshare drivers to unionize shows that Uber and Lyft workers are making less than the state's minimum wage. According to the report by Drivers Demand Justice, that's a good name. That is a good name. After accounting for the time spent in waiting on vehicle maintenance, drivers in Massachusetts earn less than $15 per hour. All right, I have thoughts on this, right? So I want to start with how much did Boston drivers make last week, right? So there's an app called Solo, and it will literally tell you how much money other drivers are making in different markets. I didn't even show you the right one. This is the Boston one. You can see the top driver in Boston made $2,347. The second driver, $1,865. The third driver, $1,584. And that was just with Lyft, right? The top driver used Uber, Lyft, and Uber Eats. The second driver used just Uber and Uber Eats. So how does this compare to the rest of the country, right? So you can also compare all drivers, right? So this is the top drivers in America, period. At least the ones that have the Solo app. It's possible that someone made more than this, but because they don't have the app, their numbers aren't going to be considered. So I didn't drive last week. I had an issue with my car. My ABS sensor went out. Like $60, 70 bucks total to fix it. It's good now. I'll drive some this week, but I didn't drive last week, so ignore my 26,893 ranking. But you can see the top driver in America is from Boston, and they made $2,312. Then Austin, Texas, with $2,297, and then New Orleans did their thing, $2,100. And you can go down. You can kind of see what's what. If I'm a driver in Boston, and I see this, and I'm making less than $15 an hour, there's a problem. When someone is able to do something in my specific market and I'm not doing that thing, I need to figure out why. And I feel like rideshare drivers, they don't want to do that. So continuing with the story, ride-hail drivers in Massachusetts grapple with the harsh reality. Promised earnings. Let me zoom in for you guys. I'll zoom in for you guys. Promised earnings often fall significantly short of actual compensation. Drivers routinely discover their earnings to be substantially lower than expected, largely attributed to unaccounted for work time and the substantial burden of work-related expenses. Analysis of ride-hail data shows that the net earnings for a majority of drivers in the industry fall below the state's minimum wage. The median Massachusetts ride-hail driver makes just $12.82 an hour, and a full 3 out of 5 drivers they made a typo, less than minimum wage, the group says. So one, this group is biased. You have a group that wants to form a union, and when you form a union, you have to pay the union. So there is a bias there. That doesn't mean that their concerns might not be real, but they're not going to push out information that says, oh, drivers actually make $25 per hour. And it's so I recently, I'm not going to, that's a spoiler. I got a video that I'm working on. I want you guys to see it for the first time. When you see it, I don't want to spoil it. But they're saying almost half of the typical driver gross ride-hail earnings are wiped out by driving expenses. That's really high. That's insanely high. Rough math, for every about $30 I make, I spend about $6 an hour after taxes and expenses on like cost. So I do think this is really high. I think that drivers need to do a better job of managing their business, and they need to do a better job of working when there's actual money to be made, right? So they did come out with this document. So I will say, out of any group that I have seen try to get together and try to change something as far as rideshare goes, I do like this group. I might not agree with everything, but they have been very organized in what they're doing. Let's put me over here. Okay. So they have some quick facts. Expenses cancel 49 cents of every dollar earned. I'm calling cap on that for sure. 3 out of 5 drivers make less than minimum wage. I don't like how. I don't think it's the area. I don't think it's the pay. And in some places it is, right? In some places, like the problem is the area. But Boston is one of the best markets that I've seen, period. In the Boston metro area, 53% of ride-hail work happens without a passenger in a car. Let me think about that. I can kind of, okay, that makes sense. Maybe. I'm not sure. If you're canceling a lot, then this makes sense. It depends on your strategy, right? You definitely want to be in an area where you minimize how often a passenger isn't in your car. And that's going to come down to strategy. 100% of pay is uncertain. With new upfront fare system in place, 100% of driver compensation is now entirely variable. All right, I get that. You know, that's for everyone. We are single mothers. We have families. It's not fair to make us go so far for $4 or $5. What we most want is justice. Uber and Lyft are both abusing us. Oh man. So, like, half of me is like, yes, go ahead and get your money. The other half of me is stop trying to be a lifelong rideshare driver. It is not worth it. And we'll find out why, but we'll keep moving forward. We're going to pay attention to this. We're going to see where it goes. I'll link to this. This is actually really good work by whoever's representing them. It's very organized. It's very to the point. It's very clear about what they want. All right. So it says this pair of driver and rider screenshots of the same June 2023 trip shows that Lyft charged the rider $28.84 and paid the driver $15.64, a 54% take rate. Now, I'm not defending Lyft. I do think they can stand to take a little less from drivers, both Uber and Lyft. But some of that is the city. Some of that's the state. Some of that is like the government getting their cut as well. Go Giga says, if you put the hours in and work when people are going places, $2,000 a week in Boston is very doable without renting a car through Uber. I agree with that. I wish, like, places I wish I could do rideshare in is New York City and Boston. I'm able to make $2,000 just chilling, right? Like 50, 60 hours, but not doing anything crazy, not working every single day in Charleston. And I know that Charleston is like a mid-cap market. It's not small, but it's not big by any means. And I know I could absolutely crush it in certain cities, but whatever. Nassif says, I don't know, maybe 2K every week is easy. I seen you do it. I'm not gonna tell him where you're at, but I've seen your name in the solo app, and I know you crush it. I see people complaining hard. It's gonna have to increase price because I'm going to retire in 4 years if they do. Yeah, man. I criticize on some of this, but if prices were to increase, I benefit more than the average person would just because of the work ethic. State and city does matter. You're correct. But if you're in a state and city that works, your strategy matters even more. Like the more money there is to be made is the more your strategy matters. Well, let's move on, right? I wanna look at Las Vegas for a little